Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I'm sitting out on my patio in my favorite bathrobe that I think, I have it like all like tight around my neck, that I think that I got at like Walmart or Meijer, and it was literally like $10.99, and I've had it for years, and I love this robe. So anyway, I just got out of the shower, and I have my coffee right here. And so I thought, instead of just talking about what I always do on this channel, I haven't even done my hair yet. I'm getting ready to go do my hair so I can make other videos. But instead of just like talking about what I do on this channel, I thought I would actually show you what I do on this channel. So I went in there, and I have two of my meditation books. I've already read a couple of the other ones. It's in the afternoon right now. But I did a couple other meditation books this morning, so I thought I would read you two that I did not read, which is The Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone and The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty. I'm actually trying to save these books for when I do videos, because I always show these so much on videos. By the way, if you want to check these books out, I have them on my Amazon store, which is listed below. Like I always say, you don't have to buy them there, but it's just there for reference. So, they're very different meditations. I didn't read them, but I went and I looked at the titles of them, and they're very, very different. So, I'm going to start with... Don't want my book to fall. I guess I'm going to have to hold both of them. I'm going to start with the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone. So, get a sip of coffee. Just kind of stay present for the moment. If you just stop and you can hear the birds in the background. It's not, I wouldn't say warm in Indianapolis today, but it's warmer, and it's like early spring, and you can hear the birds flying around. And I love to just like stay still for a couple moments before I read the meditations, and then my dogs start barking, and then it kind of clears up my mind for what I'm about to receive. So May 11th, blame and effort. A man can get discouraged many times, but he is not a failure until he begins to blame somebody else and stops trying. John Burroughs. Things often don't go the way we'd like them to. Some days it seems as if no matter how hard we work, no matter how many times we get up and try again, we just can't win. It's not our fault, we think, so it must be somebody else's fault. We can spend a lot of time complaining about this instead of dusting ourselves off and trying yet again. If I find myself blaming others, I will stop and figure out what I can do instead. Maybe I need a new strategy. Interesting meditation. There's been much of my life that I have spent like blaming others, you know, and there's that old adage that when you're pointing your finger at somebody else, there's three fingers pointing back and all that kind of stuff, you know. And when things go wrong in my life, you know, I think the easier avenue is to blame other people. But in the long run, is it really? Like, you know, what do you gain from that? And I think that what I know today, you know, this is like I was talking about inventory in my vlog the other night, and I went through and I explained what inventory was step by step and what we do. And when you do, you know, 4-step inventory, one of the parts that you do is resentments on there. And you make a list of all of the people and all of the things that have happened, or organizations or whatever that you're resentful at. And you list who it is or what it is. And then the next column is what you're resentful about. Like, what is it that they did? And it can be more than one thing. It doesn't have to just be one. And then the third column of that is what areas of your life did it affect? So is it your ego? Is it your confidence? Is it your relationships with others? Is it your money situation? What areas of your life has it affected? Like, has this action of theirs affected, right? Or the resentment that you're holding. And then the fourth part of this in the inventory is, and what is your part in that? And that's pretty much what you do in the 5th step typically. And that's difficult at times, you know, to look at situations. And I will say this because people always ask, there are some situations that you just don't have a part in, okay? I mean, without going into that, there are some situations in life that things happen that you don't really have a part in that, right? And so... But most things, when it comes to like blaming others, whether it's like breakups or, you know, relationships failing or jobs or things like that, we do have a part in it. You know, like, what was your part in why you left this job? Or what was your part in why this relationship fell apart? And what we learn through that, right? And that's in steps 4 and 5. And then step 6 and 7, what you do is you take a look at your character defects that come out as a result of what you learned in your inventory. And what we learn through that, right, is that ultimately we only have control over ourselves and our behaviors and our actions, our reactions or responses, depending on what we choose them to be. So in the long run, blaming others does absolutely no good whatsoever. It just keeps us stuck in our tracks. We aren't learning anything about ourselves. And if you've gotten on this train that I talk about all the time, about life as a journey, you know, and we're learning things, and it's like a school you never graduate from, you have to ask yourself at some point, you know, do I want to learn the lessons, or do I want to stay stuck where I am? And today I choose to learn the lessons. I don't want to stay stuck anymore. It's not fun to stay stuck. And if blaming others is going to keep me stuck, then I don't want to do that. But I have spent much of my life doing that before, you know? And I think sometimes we have to go through that. Like, it's just not an immediate response. Like, when you go through a breakup, okay? And, you know, luckily, in my past 2 relationships that I've had, we both had a part in that. We both knew that. It ended very civilly. You know, it wasn't something that we, like, were blaming the other person. But there's been situations of relationships in my life, like long time ago, you know, where I'd be like, oh, this person and that person, you know, whatever, and never really looked at the patterns of myself in relationships. And what I know today and what's helped my marriage with my husband is that I finally looked at what was my part in all of those relationships. I can look at their part too, but at some point, I have to ask myself, what does that do? You know, like, it doesn't really help me whatsoever in learning anything about what I can improve and what's my part in those things. So blaming others just keeps us stuck. It's just pointless. Like, and you have to ask yourself, like, really, like, what are you wanting to achieve by blaming others? Do you want to tell on somebody? That's honest, right? There's been moments where I wanted to tell on somebody. You know, are you wanting somebody else to see your side? Are you wanting to be vindicated? Are you wanting to be validated? Those things are all okay. Those are honest feelings. Nothing that we feel is wrong or right. They're just feelings, and feelings aren't facts. And I have to remember that feelings are not facts. But I can be honest, and driving around with my best friend in the car, talking to my sponsor on the phone, or with my husband, I have said many times, like, you know, like, I just want people to know the truth, you know, like, I want to be vindicated, or, you know, whatever. And I think we all feel that from time to time, but what's the point? Like, in the long run, we're really not learning anything about ourselves. And by and large, that person that we're blaming for something that happened to us in our life, they're not going to be in our life much longer anyway, so why are we fixated on them? It's just time to move on and take a look at what our part it was in those things. And that's hard sometimes, because sometimes we don't want to look at the fact that we had a part in it. But I believe today what I have learned is that most things that happen in my life, I do have a part in. Maybe in how I responded, or maybe how I've held the resentment and I haven't let it go yet, or I haven't been willing to work through it. And if I am not willing to work through it, do I need to, like, you know, look at my higher power and ask for willingness to get through it, those kinds of things. But it's hard. It's really hard. But blaming others just keeps us stuck. So I think that's a fantastic meditation. Okay, let me know what you guys think about that. And do you struggle with that? Is that something that you have a hard time with? Okay, so from The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty. This is a short one today. Letting go of confusion. Sometimes the way is not clear. Our minds get clouded and confused. Confused. We aren't certain what our next step should be, what it will look like, what direction we are headed. That is the time to stop, ask for guidance, and rest. That is the time to let go of fear. Wait. Feel the confusion and chaos, then let it go. The path will show itself. The next step shall be revealed. We don't have to know now. We will know in time. Trust that. Let go and trust. Today I will wait if the way is not clear. I will trust that out of the chaos will come clarity. Okay, so this is an interesting meditation, especially in talking about my sponsor. You know, I am somebody that has a higher power. I talk a lot about that in a lot of my videos. I respect people that don't. I respect people that have different opinions than I do about that. You know, you can have the air be, you know, whatever you look at, or the wind, or, you know, the universe, or whatnot. But my sponsor knows that I have a higher power. And so, you know, what she'll say to me is, in a situation, I'll be like, I really don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. And she'll always give me action. Like, she's real big on action. So maybe do an inventory, or maybe write down a list of, like, how it's affecting you and things like that. And sometimes it's really, look at my crazy hair. Sometimes it's really difficult because I don't want to look at those things, right? So this is how, just pause for a second. This is kind of what I do. So I'll read a meditation and then I'll kind of just sit there. Like, usually as I'm reading it, things come out about, like, I'll think about things. Like, while I was reading this, I was thinking about what my sponsor always says to me. She believes in action, but she also believes in prayer. And what she'll say is, pray on it. And I'm like, she knows I hate when she tells me that. Because it's kind of like the waiting game, right? And she'll say, you have to pray on it. And I'm like, okay. And she'll say, listen, if you don't know what you're supposed to do with it today, don't do anything. Because many times we act out of not knowing what to do, but wanting to push, you know, the action, wanting something to happen with it, so we don't know what to do. Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all. Sometimes the best thing to do is just sit there and not do a damn thing, right? But that's really, really hard sometimes. And so the practice of action, or the practice of prayer, really is the practice of meditation, deep thought, you know, and just waiting. And that answer usually comes from deep within inside myself, you know, and I am a believer that to some degree that, you know, like, my God is within me, and that everything I need to know is within myself. I do believe that to some degree, you know, and that if I stop and I quiet my mind enough, that the answers will come. But sometimes they don't come the way that I want them to, and sometimes they definitely don't come as quick as I want them to. But it's important for me to stop, you know, and just think about what's going on. Sometimes the answer doesn't come for months, you know. There's been situations I've been through in my life before where, you know, like my mother's passing is a good example of this. I talked about this on here the other day, that I was really, really angry when my mother passed away. I was angry at a higher power. They were honest feelings, but irrational feelings. Like, they just weren't real, you know? And I really, really struggled with it. That first 6 months to a year, I was really numb. Like, I didn't really know how to feel whatsoever. Aren't those birds pretty? I love the sound of the birds. But I really didn't know how to feel. I didn't know if my feelings were accurate or appropriate or way off base. Like, I didn't know. I just know that it felt surreal. I had lost a parent. I was sad. I was angry. Those stages of grief were all coming together, all except for bargaining. I don't think that's a stage I ever really went through. And I just didn't know how to feel, you know? And I can remember just kind of sitting on it. And then eventually, by like talking about it in 12-step meetings and talking about it to others, you know, my feelings became more accurate. And to me, like, they felt accurate, you know, they felt appropriate. Like, I knew like what I was feeling, and I could put words to it, and I could verbalize it, because before I couldn't. But I think that had I acted on that grief, like right out of the gate, I think I would have said some hurtful things to people, and I would have done some things that I'm not proud of. I wouldn't have been proud of looking back on, because, you know, like, I was really, really sad, and I you know, wanted to say things like, well, you weren't here for my mom when, or, you know what I mean, like, to friends and things like that, or, you know, she was always good to you, but, you know, like, and it's not my place to, you know, fight my mother's wars. It just wasn't. And she had a part in all of that too. But, you know, I was so angry, I was ready to fight at anybody that came my way, you know, and you know, it's just crazy, and looking at that. And a lot of blessings, you know, came from me sitting on it. I met a lot of people. I heard a lot of people's stories. There's a lot of people that really, really helped me by sharing their stories of grief, which is why I share my story of grief. So I hope, you know, other people can be affected by that as well. Because when we share our stories, at least maybe one person out there relates to just a bit of it. And that's what happened when I sat and I was still and I was silent. And I just wasn't like, oh, la, 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 all the time trying to do something with it. I eventually heard other people's stories, and then I could put words to my own, and it was good for me. But sometimes I have to just sit on it, and I just can't say anything, and I have to like just meditate and pray on it and wait for the answer to come, and that's really hard for me some days. So let me know what you guys think about these meditations in the comment section below. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.